The WNBA continues to get the kind of attention they shouldn't want. All right. Again, Colin Cowherd is making a point to talk about the WNBA again. He does it now multiple times a week, but only when it comes to one player, or in this case, one player and what it is the rest of the league is doing to her.
What if the biggest star in sports was secretly being pushed out of her own league? It sounds like the plot of a Hollywood thriller, but for Caitlin Clark, it's a shocking and undeniable reality. She was supposed to be the WNBA's savior, the generational talent who would finally lift the league into the mainstream spotlight. She was the golden goose, ready to lay multi-million-dollar eggs for a business desperate for growth. Instead, she's found herself in the middle of a war she never asked for, a civil war where the league itself seems to be handing out the weapons to her enemies. The very people who should be protecting their greatest asset are now the ones leading the charge to dismantle her.
Caitlin Clark finished 9th in player voting. In fact, she finished behind one of her own teammates in player voting. The pettiness has no bounds. For years, the WNBA players were pointing fingers. They were saying people are sexist, we're not being promoted, we're underappreciated. And then they get the golden goose and they don't like what it looks like. When the wave hits, ride it. They wanted to fly private. They wanted to be more popular. They wanted sold out arenas. They got it. I wouldn't have guessed that Caitlin Clark would be this.
Caitlin Clark isn't just a player, she's a walking, breathing economic stimulus package for a league that was, for years, struggling for relevance. Before she arrived, the WNBA considered it a success to average around 400,000 viewers for a nationally televised game. That was the benchmark. With Clark on the court, games are routinely pulling in over 1.5 million viewers. Her debut peaked at 2.1 million, the highest viewership for a WNBA game in over 2 decades, and her draft alone drew a staggering 2.45 million people. To put that in perspective, more people watched her get drafted than watched the average game the year before. The numbers are astronomical. Merchandise sales haven't just increased, they've exploded by an unbelievable 234%. She is single-handedly responsible for sold-out arenas in cities she's only visiting. For the first time, every team in the league is flying on private charter flights, a luxury players had demanded for years, and it's a direct result of the revenue she generates. A finance professor calculated that as a rookie, Clark accounted for an insane 12% of all economic activity in the entire WNBA. By all logical accounts, the league should have rolled out a red carpet made of gold. Instead, they sharpened their knives and waited for her to walk across it.
This is clearly them cutting her down, because when you look at fan voting, obviously Clark is one, right? Because she has the most fans in the league. So that clearly biased. You go to the media voting,
she was 3.
She was 3. That actually makes sense.
I agree. She's not having the best of years this year. She's actually, her shooting is down.
Exactly.
There's been a number of situations that she's just not played her best ball. But she is still much, eons better than a lot of the other players that they voted in front of her.
A university professor in finance looked up the value of Caitlin Clark for the WNBA. This is insane. So this year, last season in the WNBA, Caitlin Clark was 26.5% of all economic activity as a rookie on the worst team in the league when she entered it. So now she has an 8-year, $128 million deal with Nike. So, she's going to eat. Merchandise in the league went up off a rookie from a Midwest-based school on the worst team in the league, 234.
The welcome she received wasn't just chilly, it was openly hostile. The aggression wasn't hidden in subtle basketball plays, it was blatant and often malicious. The turning point for the public came in the form of a blindside hip check from Chicago skyguard Kennedy Carter. It was a cheap shot delivered with venom while the ball was nowhere in sight. Carter had even been caught on camera calling her a BH just moments before the foul. This wasn't rookie hazing, this was a message sent loud and clear from the league's veteran class. You are not welcome here. The public outcry was deafening, yet the league's initial response was disturbingly weak, almost dismissive. Clark's own coach, Christy Sides, offered little more than a generic, non-committal shrug in the post-game press conference, a reaction that many saw as a betrayal. But this wasn't an isolated incident. It was the most visible part of a disturbing pattern. Game after game, she is subjected to a level of physicality that goes beyond tough defense. She's hammered on drives to the basket, bumped and shoved off the ball, and rarely gets the star whistle that players of her caliber typically receive. It's reminiscent of how defenders used to bounce off Shaquille O'Neal without a call, but Clark doesn't have Shaq's physique to absorb it. The hits weren't just happening on the court, they were part of a larger, more insidious campaign happening behind the scenes.
I'm not going to ignore, nor am I going to take my eyes off of what transpires with the WNBA over the next 2 weeks while Caitlin Clark is out with the quad strain. And the reason why is because, let me tell you something right now. I'm not going to go to word hate. I'm not going to be out there like RG3 was saying that Angel Reese hates Caitlin Clark or other players hate Caitlin Clark. But I will say this. I don't think it's specific about Caitlin Clark. I think it's what Caitlin Clark represents. See, it's through no fault of Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark balled. She balled at Iowa in college. She's balled since she's been in the NBA. She came into the league last year with no break whatsoever between the college game and the pro game and did her thing.
Caitlin Clark had another, whatever you want to call it, confrontation in a WNBA game. Like, why is this happening? The Caitlin Clark phenomenon is one that I got wrong. I never really thought that Caitlin Clark would make the difference that she has in college basketball or in the WNBA. What other sports analogies are out there that are in any way similar to the impact that one individual has had on a larger sporting universe? Tiger was...
If you truly want to understand the depth of the resentment against Caitlin Clark, you don't need to watch the games. You just need to look at the All-Star vote. The results were a stunning expose of the league's internal politics. The fans, the people who actually buy the tickets, jerseys, and league passes, overwhelmingly voted her #1 overall. The media, the journalists, and analysts who cover the game for a living ranked her as the 3rd best guard in the league, a fair assessment of a rookie finding her footing. But her own peers, the very players who share the court with her and benefit from her popularity, they ranked her a shocking 9th among guards. It wasn't just a snub, it was a coordinated act of professional pettiness, a unified statement that they refused to acknowledge the force of nature, who is elevating all of their careers and bank accounts. Legendary sports analyst Dick Vitale didn't mince words, calling it pure jealousy from haters who can't stand to see her get the spotlight they feel they deserve. They will double team her for 40 minutes, treat her like the most dangerous threat on the floor, and then turn around and vote like she's a bench warmer. Their actions on the court reveal her importance, while their ballots reveal their contempt.
She doesn't always get the consistent great star whistle. I think they're still kind of figuring out how to officiate her. Right? Like I've said this for years when I covered Shaq and Shaq got fouled more than anybody I've ever seen. I mean, it was insane. People bounced off Shaq. Jokic complains constantly, like people are bouncing off me. She doesn't quite get as favorable a whistle as you think. So I think
neither does Steph too. That's the funny.
So we all know who Caitlin Clark is. She's the golden goose, laying those golden eggs for the WNBA to prosper. Well, a lot of times we notice that the WNBA is resisting this golden goose and resisting this bump and this force of nature, which is Caitlin Clark. So we're going to dive deep into that. What's behind that? Is it jealousy, envy, pettiness, all the above, more than that? We're going to have to go. But
perhaps the most bizarre and troubling chapter of this entire saga is the enemy who seems to be operating from within her own camp. Her head coach, Christy Sides, has been at the center of a storm of criticism for her puzzling and often counterproductive handling of her star player. In a league where coaches are expected to be fierce advocates for their stars, Sides has been conspicuously passive. She is frequently seen benching Clark during crucial moments of the game, pulling her out for extended stretches with no clear strategic reason. Her minutes are managed with a baffling inconsistency, and her role in the offensive system often seems designed to limit her impact, not unleash her world world-class talent. This isn't just about managing a rookie's workload. It feels like a quiet, deliberate campaign to humble her. Many have pointed out that Sides was the coach who once sat idly by while Clark was getting poked and prodded in another game, showing little emotion or defense of her player. Now she's in charge. The situation has led fans and analysts to ask a terrifying question. Was this coach hired to build Caitlin Clark up, or was she strategically positioned to tear her down? It's a conspiracy theory that feels more like a documentary with each passing game. The chemistry between them is like oil and a dumpster fire, a cold war being fought with sneakers and clipboards.
So it's the last part of it, the players vote, that I take some exception to. And I'm not a big Caitlin Clark fan. Like, I don't care either way, but they vote her 9. And why I find that absolutely hilarious is you can say she's 9 if you want, but you don't treat her like she's 9. Because when she was here in town, they were picking her up 3/4 court the entire game. And they had her double teamed the entire game. Now, is your shooting efficiency going to go down?
Caitlin Clark was number 1 among fans, number 3 among media. What do you think she was among players?
Dead last.
She's not last.
No, not last, no. But
barely made it to the top 10. So she was 1, 3, and 9.
Well,
Dick Vitale went off on a whole rant. It is pure jealousy. Someday these players will realize what she has done for them. They now have chartered planes, increase in salaries, sold out crowds, improved TV ratings. Stop being jealous haters on Caitlin.
With tensions escalating from every conceivable direction, from opponents, from peers, and from her own sideline, the whispers began to circulate. These weren't just idle rumors. They were whispers so potent and destructive they could crater the entire league. The unthinkable idea began to gain traction in media circles, fanned into flames by commentators like Colin Cowherd. What if the Indiana Fever traded Caitlin Clark? On the surface, the idea is certifiably insane. It's like Apple deciding to discontinue the iPhone or a network canceling its highest rated show in history. But in the bizarre, upside-down world of the WNBA, where success is seemingly punished, it suddenly felt chillingly plausible. Trading Clark wouldn't just be a bad basketball move, it would be an act of league-wide self-immolation. It would doom the Indiana Fever to immediate and permanent irrelevance, but the damage would be far greater. It would be a flaming middle finger to the millions of new fans she brought to the sport, a clear signal that their interest and money are not wanted. It would be a loud and clear declaration that the WNBA would rather fail on its own bitter terms than succeed on hers. Keeping her in Indiana under this regime is like storing fireworks in a freezer. Nothing is going to explode and everyone will be disappointed.
Now let's look at the viewership, right? So I'm looking at here. So before the WNBA, before Caitlin arrived, the WNBA averaged around 300,000 to 400,000 viewers per game on national television, right? 300,000 to 400,000 viewership, right? The 2023 season, they said they saw an average of 367,000 viewers, right? When Caitlin Clark came, with her presence, viewership has increased with some games drawing over 1 million viewers, right? Caitlin Clark's WNBA draft for her drew 2.45 million viewers. That's crazy. So that means these people and what she did in college and bringing them all to the WNBA scale, people are watching the WNBA because of Caitlin Clark.
There's a lot of hate on Caitlin Clark, and I think because she's white, because she's a hooper and she's going out there and bust people's ass every single night, and it's this little pretty petite country girl that you're not expecting. Again, she's not super athletic, she's not super big, but boy, can she shoot that ball, and she is must-watch TV. I think when she was hurt a few weeks ago, they said viewership dropped by 52%. You know what I mean? And
I didn't watch. I quit watching the teams. Yeah.
This simmering conflict goes far deeper than simple locker room jealousy. This is about power and control. The WNBA's old guard, from the veteran players to the suits in the front office, appears to be terrified of one player becoming bigger than the league itself. They don't want a singular, transcendent star in the mold of Tiger Woods or Michael Jordan, a figure whose gravitational pull reshapes the entire sport around them. Instead, they seem to want a sanitized collectivist system where no single person shines too brightly, where the brand is the star. Caitlin Clark, with her wholesome Iowa background, her record-breaking jump shot, and her unprecedented mainstream appeal fundamentally disrupts that narrative. She is not edgy in the corporate-approved way. She's a wholesome assassin from the heartland, and that doesn't fit the curated chaos they're trying to sell. So the system is fighting back. They are trying to sand down her edges, dim her spotlight, and subtly remind everyone that the machine is more important than any single part. It's a calculated, passive-aggressive campaign to break the hype, flatten the curve, and restore the old, established hierarchy before it's too late.
When we talk about hatred, when we talk about jealousy, when we talk about pettiness, Caitlin Clark's name always pops up because that's what she receives on a daily basis. And for the players to vote her ninth in guards just lets you know how out of touch they are. And it's not because of her game. It's simply because of those three things that I mentioned. She was ranked first by the fans, which makes sense. She was ranked number 3 by the media, which kind of makes sense. Anywhere between the 1, 2, or 3rd, that's fine. And then she was ranked 9th by the play.
Now, Caitlin Clark is effectively trapped. She is enduring open hostility from her opponents, staggering pettiness from her peers, and a bizarre, inexplicable lack of support from her own head coach. The commissioner, Kathy Engelbert, sits courtside, nodding and smiling for the cameras, pretending not to see the slow-motion character assassination happening right in front of her. It's all part of the plan, a full-court PR detox designed to remind everyone that no player is bigger than the WNBA logo. Clark is the sole reason the league is experiencing this unprecedented boom, yet she is being treated like an unwanted guest at a party thrown in her honor. Every game has become a battle, not just against the 5 players on the other team, but against the very institution she is single-handedly saving. The question is no longer if the WNBA can handle the Caitlin Clark phenomenon, but rather how long Caitlin Clark will be willing to handle the WNBA's dysfunction. There is a breaking point for everyone, and if she finally decides she's had enough, she won't be the one to blame. She won't be a villain or a quitter. She'll be the one who escaped, leaving everyone else behind in the darkness of their own making, forced to reckon with the ashes of the golden age they chose to burn down themselves.